and also live up to expectation.
I think the Nigerians listening to you now, perhaps there must be some kind of way out of this, a recipe coming from NLC. If you think this is outrageous and you say it is also illegal, what is the NLC bringing to the table as an alternative?
Well, luckily, this is not the first time these matters have come. We have written position that we have submitted to government on the how the downstream sector should be managed. These are documented, and the government is, if they have lost them and they want, we can resubmit them. And if the proper legal stakeholder positions are created in accordance with the law, not these ad hoc ambush, and you say that's a consultation. If you were to convene the proper board of PPRA, where all the stakeholders, including marketers and government, are represented, and we want to discuss this matter, we have the position as to how this should be done. So we are ready to engage and discuss. But first, illegalities have to be rolled back. And we are calling for the rollback of this illegal increase. And let us then, within proper, sitting down properly with everybody, let us see if ideas can be brought that can be used to address the situation we are dealing with.
Well, Dr. Ozeson, we had marketers who have also said that they want full deregulation of the sector. And as a result of that, they, at some point in time, when they consistently demanded that subsidy be paid to them, the government in turn says, no, we don't have that. So it kept on going back and forth. From your perspective, when do you think it would have been right to fully deregulate the sector?
We have, as part of that documentation we have placed before government before, we had indicated what conditions needed to be met before we can discuss the issue of full or whatever degree of deregulation. Those conditions include the, beefing domestic refining so that we're not chasing import parity. To the extent that you do not deal with that matter, any attempt at deregulation is merely transferring the burden from government and exposing the ordinary Nigerian to the exploitative instincts of the marketers, because this is not a competitive industry. This is a monopolistic industry. And we know that in a monopolistic industry, when you have situations like this, you're going to have exploitation. And that is where, even when you talk of deregulation, there is hardly any country in the world in which there is some degree of regulation in order to protect consumers because of the monopolistic power in the oil sector. So these conditions, we documented them. They need to be looked at. We need to meet those conditions. And if those are then met, we can start to then engage properly on what manner of deregulation or regulation should be in place.
Is Labour taking into account what has happened with AGO? We're talking about diesel. Because we didn't see much of such protests from Labour in the past when that happened to diesel. Is this because of the number of people who make use of PMS?
You see, yes, that's partly the AGO segment of the market is a very tiny one. But even at that, we know from history what has happened. When you said you had deregulated diesel, what really happened? We have a plot of a graph that showed that Nigeria were paying higher for diesel compared to many other countries for quite some time. And we find that even when prices were falling drastically in the rest of the world, the adjustment downwards in the price of diesel had been marginal. And that's why today, depending on where you are, in Abuja we pay 135. To run our, for a barrel of diesel to run our offices and all that. In some places, I saw 125 displayed on this program somewhere in Lagos. But the fact of the matter is that when you unleash a monopoly power on a market that is as large and is as widespread as the case of PMS, then that is a different matter. And the degree to which exploitation can then take place there is much more massive. And that is why the stand, it is not that we did not protest deregulation of diesel. We did, but government went ahead and did it. And today, if it were to do that, the same is true for kerosene, because these are things that affect the very common, the poorest people. Government needs to ensure that these are not open-ended things that where consumers can then be exploited and massive suffering imposed on Nigerians.
Mr. Sarison, again, I'll take you back to the issue of importation and the situation that has been in the country. For a while, there's been this scarce position where, you go to fuel stations, you don't find the products to buy. And when you find it, Nigerians have been paying for petroleum products for between 150 naira and 400 naira in some places. And in some other places, as someone mentioned yesterday, as much as 500 naira per litre. And this situation the decision of the federal government to peg it at 145 naira at least, so that let it be that everybody can go and import and find the products to buy with a cap. You still think that it's not good that Nigerians are now guaranteed that they are not going to be paying up to 500 naira per litre, but at least 445? You say it's not good?
No, please, let's place the facts as they are. When we talk of 500 naira and all that, these are during periods of orchestrated shortages in order to force a particular policy through. I saw, before I came on into the studio, when you were going on in the Lagos one and you interviewed people, I heard people complain that even in the black market price, they were able to buy at 120. Why would government now suddenly escalate to 145? There may have been others where it was higher, but these are orchestrated, these are not normal situations. And in any case, let us place the facts correctly. What is the responsibility of government? Government, for instance, has the Department of Petroleum Resources. Part of the functions of the Department of Petroleum Resources is enforcement of regulations. And so, under the existing situation, if the price was 86 naira, it was the duty of government to enforce everywhere that they comply. If government fails in its responsibility, that cannot be used as a logical argument to then support a further imposition of hardship on the people. Government has a duty to the people. Government has a responsibility to be efficient in carrying out its functions. Among those functions is to enforce the price that has been determined. And when government therefore fails in those regards and comes around to use that as the logic for bringing some unacceptable policy, then government is admitting that it has failed. And we need to be factual and tell ourselves these truths.
Well, there are those who ask questions of labor. First, we've seen some groups that seem to have supported this move. MAN, LCCI say, look, this is a welcome move. And then some also wonder that in the past, labor seemed to have been somewhat responsible for getting us where we are today, because they think labor resisted privatization of the refineries, of which some persons are building refineries now, and now labor resisting this move. So they just wonder, what exactly is labor driving at here?
Well, I don't understand the logic of what you just said. Resisting the privatization of refineries did not in any way mean resisting the opening up of the refinery subsector. That private individuals are building their own refineries. That's what we have always canvassed for. We said, encourage private individuals to build their refineries. Let those that have already in the public coffers be used. It's just like NNPC. You have the mega stations. That does not mean there are no other outlets. There are other outlets, but the presence of NNPC stations side by side with those private ones exerts moderating influence. The same thing is logical in the refinery subsector. So you cannot say because we said that refineries should not be privatized, that is responsible for the present situation. we have never opposed the building of private refineries. As a matter of fact, through the Matu committee report process and all that, we participated in what incentive structure should be placed on ground in order to make the private companies to go into refining, including suggestions that the major players in the upstream be cajoled into also operating in the downstream by building refineries. So whatever accusation in that regard, I cannot see that it has a base, because we have been very clear, we have been very open on our positions on these matters.
If more people, maybe more Nigerians or a larger percentage say, well, you know what, Labour, I think we like this deregulation or liberalization, will Labour accept it?
Well, Nigerians will have to determine, but clearly from the feedback we get, and from calls we are getting, and from the pressures even by Nigerians who are not workers already on us, the facts are clear that the majority of Nigerians are saying this is unacceptable. And I think that part of the duty of the media is to correctly reflect what the mood of Nigerians are, not just of corporate entities driven by corporate greed. And I think that is what is important. What the majority of Nigerians want is what we will follow. And on our part, we have our own channels of assessing what those majority of Nigerians want.
All right, Dr. Peter Ozoeson, General Secretary of NLC, thank you for talking to us today. We'll be back in a minute. Don't go away.